I'm very happy to introduce James Gavins, Craig Knitt, and Alex Zacarias, wherever he is, from the Boys and Girls Clubs of Greater Green Bay. The Boys and Girls Clubs, come on up here you guys, has a program called the Youth Arts Initiative, which has been funded by the Wallace Foundation as a way to reach and engage middle school students using the arts. And when I got to go up to Green Bay and to the Boys and Girls Clubs and sort of see what they were doing in action, I was so in awe of what they were doing that I thought that it would be a good inspiration for all and a model for all of us as you're going out there and doing your good work in the arts, education, and engagement. James is going to do it because he knows what to do because he's way younger than me. But please give Alex, James, and Craig your attention, and they're going to tell us about the work that they're doing and the great kids they're working with in Green Bay.
Good morning. It's so awesome to see all these arts folks, and all the arts folks are always so pretty too. I love that. But ladies and gentlemen, we represent the Youth Arts Initiative, and how do we switch the slides, James? Bam. Bam. Look at us. That's us. We're the heroes in this picture. And I'm going to have the artists introduce themselves. Okay.
I am Alex Zacarias. I'm an Emmy Award-winning television producer. I've been a teaching artist for the past 4 years. I'm the digital visual arts director. Basically, I teach 21st century skills via filmmaking and video production.
How you guys doing? I'm James Gavins. I'm the Performing Arts Director at the Boys and Girls Club of Greater Green Bay with the Youth Arts Initiatives. I'm a UW alum, theater major from here, and also alum of First Wave, second floor of First Wave. Oh, I forgot to say what I do. Oh, so basically, I'm coming in as a Performing Arts Director doing things connected to theater, like hip hop theater, multimedia theater, anything that connects pretty much a kid in whatever art form they do to the stage. That's what I do.
And I'm Craig Knitt with a hard K, Knitt. And I make comic books, and I've also been an educator for over 25 years in the fine state of Wisconsin. I taught in my hometown of Marion, Wisconsin for 20 years, and a lot of the things that I did with administration there just kind of went right over their head, as I'm sure a lot of you guys understand. But now it's wonderful because the work that we're doing with YAI is getting some recognition, and I'm doing the same thing I was doing before. So, Wallace Foundation had a question. Wallace Foundation wanted to know, are the arts good for kids? Well, you know what? Duh, right? Everybody out here knows that yes. A little more specifically, they wanted to know if the arts were good for kids in an after-school setting. And they also wanted to know, are the arts good for kids who are in that tween age, the 10 to 13-year-old age, where they're just hungry for something and they can meander off and they could get lost in society, or boom, they can get caught into becoming an artist. And that's what we wanted to learn and get some data behind what was going on with Are the Arts Good for Kids? They came up with a series of 10 principles that we were using from the Something to Say report, and I'm going to have Alex tell us about the first 5.
So all these principles are condensed in this book that just came out, the Raising the Bar and Stretching the Canvas. It's based on the study that began 4 years ago. There's qualitative and quantitative data that basically says, duh, the arts is important to our community.
That's going to be our catchphrase.
So I'm going to tell you about the first 5 principles. Professional practice artists as teachers. So I come from a low-income, I was one of those low-income youth from Chicago. And what saved me was this organization called the Boys and Girls Club. So I'm a clubber, I'm a lifetime clubber. And in there was an individual who was a martial artist, so he taught me the fine arts of protecting yourself, basically. And that kind of helped living in a crime-ridden community. But what he instilled in me was, what was really important is that the club invested back then in a specialist. So that's what we're doing today. the most important thing is to bring in actual artists that do the real stuff. Performing artists, graphic artists, Emmy Award-winning producers. So that's crucial in this. Two, executive directors that have a deep public commitment to the arts. Our executive gets it, our boss gets it. He goes out and he chimes how important the arts is. Our executives need to have that investment in this. So and not only does he talk about the importance of the art, but the importance of sustainability. How do we keep this program going? Three, dedicated, inspiring, and welcoming spaces in which young people can be at. So in my case, in my art form, I have a TV studio. They said, Alex, what do you need to make your art form succeed? I said, I need a lot of money. Okay, here's a lot of money. They gave me a TV studio with a stage and a green screen, and also I have a whole suite of editing equipment, and then we also have state-of-the-art technology and so on. A culture of high expectations from the youth. I address my youth as young artists, not youth or kids or whatever. I tell them, hey, it's good to have you here, young artist. What do you want to do today? So that's important, you're giving them that strength. Prominent public events that showcase the arts participants create. So it can be anything from a red carpet event. I mean, we go full out, we'll get a limousine and we'll celebrate their culmination of the work that they've done in the past 10 weeks. So that's very important. It can be in-house, celebrating in-house within the club itself, or out in the community.
All right, and the last 5, positive relationships among the youth and adults involved in the program. So for the most part, we've all been onboarded and had professional developments in our connection with youth, whether it be with different programs like the Kennedy Center or going to Atlanta, the Boys and Girls Club of America. We've all been given a lot of tools when it comes to creating the space and interacting with youth. Meaningful leadership roles for young people, creating pipelines for your kids that advance so they don't feel like, oh, I'm around the dabblers all the time and I feel like I'm learning the same thing. Creating pipelines so that they can continue, even while you're still teaching, continue learning and advancing what they're doing. Hands-on experience for youth with current equipment and technology, as he spoke of, having the funding to actually have new things in the classroom that they can experiment with, and so they can be equipped, even if they decide to be professional career artists, right? They can go out and actually know how to use the equipment. Strong partnerships with key stakeholders in the community, super important, not only for recruitment, but to make a big impact where they live, for them to create something that has to do with their living situation or with the city they live in and be able to display it to people who actually make those decisions is huge. In a space that is physically and emotionally safe so young people can learn and experiment and thrive, which brings me to my part. Yeah, this is me in my class with a few of the kids that I work with. For me, it's very important to create safe spaces for youth, especially when it comes to expression. For the most part, there's a lot of kids who don't end up expressing themselves because of the dynamic of the room, or the other kids in the room, or even the educator sometimes. So with me, and I'm sure with all of us, we're focused on making great people and then making great artists. Because once you make great people, they're gonna make great art and they're gonna be able to represent themselves well and represent the organization well. So at the beginning, we were all put into the phase of social emotional learning. And for anybody who looks at this wheel, they'll go, oh, that's just a good person in a wheel. But for the most part, and for the people who can't see it, self-management, self-awareness, responsible decision-making, social awareness, and relationship skills. Now, the thing is, when you take this apart and are intentional about the way that you put it into your programming, then you can have bigger discussions about self-awareness, about self-management, responsible decision-making skills, and then it can be intertwined into the work that they create. So not only are they doing it and practicing it, they can contextualize it when we culminate and when we bring them around people, and then start to use it in their own lives. And given that we did get the numbers from this, it's not just an idea anymore. I got numbers, cool. All right, so 82% of youth strongly agree that they experience a positive relationship with the teaching artists, mentors, and YI classes. And I can speak for anybody who teaches youth art that for the most part, especially in low-income neighborhoods, or if you are dealing with troubled youth, you're more than an art educator. You're a counselor, sometimes you're a philosopher, sometimes you're a secondary parent, you know. And in instilling all of these things, you have to know if somebody is not having it in some area, they're gonna come to you. All the advice you're telling me is making sense. Life is getting better with the things that you're telling me. So being very effective in hiring, because sometimes you'll have people where you'll be like, hey, you're great with kids, but the kids aren't learning any art. Or you'll have people where it's like, yo, you're a great artist, but the kids are like, I don't want to be there. So having that onboarding and having professional developments that actually allow there to be a balance in that. 87% of youth strongly agree that they experience physical and emotional safety in YI classes. And that's pretty much because I'm a pit bull. But being able to create a standard within these classes, and you're kind of mother bird, father bird in these situations. One thing I do before I meet any new group of kids, I just want you guys to know that I'm very, very petty. I'm a petty person, and and I set this level of respect to where it's like, look, you can have bad behavior if you want to, but I'm gonna have a 30-minute video for your parents because I'm petty, I'm gonna record everything. So just having that space to where the kids who may get picked on in other situations, or they may not be able to speak their mind, to know that, okay, cool, if anything happens, he has me. He's got it. And if I have an idea that everybody else doesn't agree with, he can bring the genius out of it and make everybody think that it's a genius idea. So that's very important. 86% of youth strongly agree that their interest in ideas youth input were incorporated into YI classes. So basically, it's been important to all of us to youth voice is pretty much the engine of this program. It's not creating a program and having everybody become cookie cutter and fit into it. It's, hey, I'm gonna pull out the skeleton and I need the muscles and the meat and the blood and the skin from everybody in here. So that also brings being flexible, being very flexible in how you teach your classes. Because it might change depending on who's in the room or what they want to do. You might get 2 weeks in and they're like, we don't want to do this, we want to do that. And being able to switch and go into that. So this looks like I'm talking, so I picked this picture. So I'm going to tell you guys a story, pretty much about social emotional learning and how I've seen it to be effective through my classes. I was working out of Milwaukee before I was working in Green Bay. I was working with the Boys and Girls Club in Milwaukee, and there was a girl who pretty much, we have this rule, you shouldn't be in the hallways. She was always in the hallway. That rule didn't matter to her. And to me, I always described her as a shark. Like, it was like she just kind of walked through the hallways, and it was like, I need you out the hallway, and she was just like, rah, and then she just kept swimming. So the more I saw her, because I was, seeing effective results in different kids, I was like, I gotta change that. I want to change that, and I feel like I can. So it started with slow conversations, like, hey, what are you into? And she would just be like, I don't know. But what do you want to do? So the more this went on, I started to pay attention to her and what she actually liked or whatever she was doing. And then I was like, hey, come in the room. And I was like, well, what do you really want to do? She was like, I want to be an actress. I was like, well, who was your favorite actress? She's like, Taraji P. Henson's my favorite actress. And I'm like, well, I have a friend who's on Empire. And she's like, really? And I realized that at that moment, I'd been working there for a year, and I don't remember ever seeing her teeth. I was like, and it threw me off because I was like, this is the first time I've seen this girl smile in a year and a half. And I feel like that story is important because for the most part, we're not dealing with bad kids. We're just dealing with some really hard puzzles. And sometimes they just take a really, really long time.
I represent the graphic design and graphic arts. My kids have been wonderful little artists, and they don't necessarily come in as artists, and they don't identify as artists, but I did want to talk to you guys a little bit about the language of businesses. And as an artist, come on, let's face it, you guys, if we got skills, if we're talented, we don't have to go to businesses, they'll come to us, right? It takes a long time to learn that. But if you learn that early, and I would encourage any artists out there to learn that early, because that's very important. When I'm finished with this Youth Arts Initiative, I want to write a book about process versus product. And that's always been a catchphrase, and it's always been something that I've personally studied, and I've seen both extremes. I've seen one side where it's like, hey man, it doesn't matter what it looks like when it's done as long as the kids are groovy and having a great time as they're creating. Shut up, hippie, and move out of the way. I get it. But I also really insist on high quality with what I'm doing. And this is a photograph of my kids, and we just had finished up our calendar of the year. So it didn't happen overnight. It took quite a while to make the calendar, but when it finally was finished, the quality was there, and if any of you guys are interested in getting a copy, talk to me afterwards. We also made a comic book that was professionally printed in our classroom. When it comes to businesses, there's 21st century job skills, and that became something very, very important to what we were talking about, because funders get that language. Funders understand what that means. People who are advocates for the art are starting to learn how important that stuff is. We're talking about creative thinking. We're talking about imagination. We're talking about problem solving. And George pointed out something for me last week, problem identifying. And that's going to be part of my new language, buddy. I'm stealing that from you. So these are great things, and employers are totally and completely understanding that. Right now we're implementing STEAM up at the Boys and Girls Club as well, and I think a lot of you guys are familiar with that. STEM used to be science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Boom, boom, great. So it's a really cool opportunity, but even Google released a report recently that said this is great. These people are coming out of it, they're very smart, but they don't quite have these social emotional connections. They don't quite have the creative thinking that we want them to have. They don't quite have problem solving skills that would make them holistic people. So you know what they did? They put an A in STEM and turned it into STEAM. So now we have an arts thing. I want to call it STEAM because I want the arts in there twice, darn it. That'd be even better. Let's do that. Sorry. These are my stats. I'm going to really go through these fast because I think they're pretty self-explanatory. 90% of the youth strongly agree that they experience high expectations. So we really want them to know that what they're doing is important. And we want them to know that keeping, for a kid, one of the most difficult things to do is make a plan for something and design what you want your piece to look like in the end. Because they just want to take a crayon or a marker or whatever tool they have and do the finished project right there. So to get them to do some of these steps is difficult, but they're learning that, and they're actually applying it and doing some great work through that. 89% of the youth gave their full effort in class. Now, I don't know what kids are saying as far as what their full effort is. I gave my full effort! And okay, thank you, but that's a good thing to have, where they're actually committing to the efforts that are there. And the tricky thing for you guys to understand is that the Boys and Girls Club is optional. These kids come to the club and they could go and shoot hoops, where there's no expectations other than to make the ball into the hoop. They can go and play on the computers. They can go and do all these other things. Why should they come into my space and have Mr. Craig bust their butt trying to get them to make all this work? Because they love it. Because I love having them in there, because I'm supportive of what they're doing. 65% of the youth develop teamwork skills during YI classes. This is also very important because these kids don't necessarily work together all the time. They're coming from different schools, they're coming from different opportunities, different social levels, and all of a sudden they're working together. We had a culminating event years ago with Alex and myself and a couple of the other artists at the time. Our kids got together from opposite sides of the town, sharing only that they are artists. That was the only linking factor between these kids, and that they're tweens, and they got along swimmingly. It was wonderful to see. This is Caden. I want to tell you guys Caden's story. My kids did a comic strip. Most kids did one page, or one comic strip. Caden did 5. All right? Caden also did a little carrot maze at the bottom of his page. So when our comic book was printed, we took it to Powers Comics up in Green Bay, and we did a public signing. A handful of kids showed up, but Caden was there, and I gave the spiel the first couple times, and then as soon as Caden was seen it twice, he's like, Mr. Craig, I got this. I can do this. It's like, all right, we got a comic book that you can get for $4. And if you do that right now, we're going to give you a calendar, we're going to give you a print, we're going to give you a bookmark, we're going to give you an old comic book that we also did. Look at what a great bargain, all for $4. And then Caden, after a while, he's like, Mr. Craig, I got something for you. What if we had a hero package? I'm like, what are you talking about, Caden? What if we had, you can get the comic book for $4, or for $5, you can get the hero package. All right, Caden, I'm curious, what is it? Well, all that stuff you're giving away for free? We can charge an extra $1 for that. And by God, no one just bought the comic book after that. Every single person bought the hero package, all because of his idea. Yes, that is deserving of an applause. Big time. That I did not plan on teaching in my classroom. That I had no idea that personal, that public connection was going to take place in my space. I didn't anticipate that at all. But I got a young entrepreneur on my hands, and Alex does a lot of work with entrepreneurism as well. Do you tell me that there was a value there? Absolutely. So thank you guys very much. I'm going to turn it over to Alex.
The most important thing that I try to teach my youth as artists is we need to get out in the community. We need to be a voice. We need to be activists. I'll tell my youth, all right, get the camera gear, we're going somewhere. Where are we going, Mr. Alex? We're going on an adventure. And the adventures can take us anywhere. In this case here, I had 2 Native American young ladies, young artists, one from Oneida, one Menominee. And at the time, and still going on, was the Dakota pipeline issue. So they felt strongly about it. They didn't know how to express themselves, only angrily, and I gave them voice. I said, well, why don't we produce a little short video on that? And they did. They did the research. You know, tell a kid to go do research. But if you find what they're passionate about, they'll do the research. They'll find the information. So it's looking for their passion, looking for their voice. In this case, we connected with UWGB, and they have a First Nations education program, and the kids had an opportunity to interview an elder there and learn more about their Native culture. And my other youth who are not Native, they learned about an important culture that affects them. 74% of YA youth say the arts aspire to make me to make a change in my community. That's what they want to do. They want to make a change, and they're finding their voice. Some want to talk about specifics, broken homes, to again bringing national, issues that are affecting us nationally. Also, what's important is that my youth get involved in the arts community. So we try to participate in community activities related to the arts, such as the Green Bay Film Festival. This year they came in 3rd place. There's a young speaker there. When he first came to me, he couldn't say 2 words. And through practice and presentation, and he was the voice for our group. What you don't see here is one of our youth that was instrumental in he was one of the main characters. On that day, his parents were being evicted out of his apartment, so he wasn't able to be there. 72% of the YA youth say they like to attend plays, music concerts, or art exhibits. So right now we have a great relationship with the Neville Public Museum in Green Bay. They invited us to create, as part of the Brown County 200-year anniversary, if they came and they said, hey, can your youth produce a video as part of our exhibit? So that's what I mean about making those kind of relationships, that's meaningful. So thank you, Neville Public Museum. 94% of YA youth say they have learned to express their ideas, thoughts, and feelings through art. I have straggled. Most of the time, the way I get my youth are the ones that are straggling through the hallways, and the club staff know, oh, bring that kid to Mr. Alex. So they'll bring them to me, and they find their voice there, because again, it's a space. And I've been there. I've been where they're at. So when I look in their eyes, I'm really looking at myself, and it's like, whoa. Let me give them the language that empowered me when I was a kid. So it's empathy that's really important, and adaptability. So that's what I'm trying to teach them to survive. Here, our youth just finished wrapping up an entrepreneurial program at Northeast Wisconsin Technical College. I reached out to them, and because I make a living doing my art, I begged them. I said, "Can you do something at a level for 10 to 13 years old?" What I found is that through this exercise is my youth said, "Oh, we love making video, but I want to open up a cupcake bakery, or I want to sell comic books, or I want to teach dance." So what I'm learning is they come through our spaces, even though they have an outside dream that maybe not be related, but they're finding out that an arts can be a vehicle to fulfill their other dreams as well, because they need to learn all these skills that the arts offers.
4 years ago, the Wallace Foundation started this experiment. What they wanted to know is, are the arts good for kids? And they dumped a lot of money our way to get this underway. We had an independent research group come in so that all the stats were legit. When they gave that money to the Boys and Girls Club, there were a lot of arts organizations around the nation that were like, why did they give it to the Boys and Girls Club? That is not an arts organization at all. That doesn't seem right. And when our bosses first went to the National Guild for Community Education, Arts Education, there was even talk about that. Now, years later, as we went to the one in Chicago last year, people were coming up to us and they're going, how did you guys do it? Because now we've got data to back up. Are the arts good for kids? Absolutely. It's no longer duh. We have this answer now. And the second report's coming out very soon, which is even going to be more in-depth. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. Are there any questions? Right now we're actually using it as promotional tools. So we haven't really generated a lot of funds through that, but we ultimately could be. I've got, as I mentioned earlier, my goal is to have these comic books independently created. Right now I've got two brothers that are almost there, that are working together to make a comic. Unfortunately, there's copyright infringement discussions between the two because the one's stealing the other one's character, and I'm like, come on, you guys. Please, seriously? And then they're like arguing, well, I'm going to get an extra 10% of the profits. Whatever it takes, just stop fighting. But yes, what my goal is with those guys is I would love to kickstart that project with them. But we have to find a way to kind of maneuver within the system that we're at, because the Boys and Girls Club is scared of that. They don't know what to do when things are generating monies on that level. Well, and it's true. They just don't. They've never experienced it yet before. So we're going to have to find and set up models for how to make that happen. But Alex has made money with his kids shooting film.
So there's the age-old problem of being an artist. Is like, can you volunteer to do this stuff for us? No, not anymore. So our youth are actually being sought after. Hey, can they do? There's the Green Bay Protege Entrepreneurial Program. Where they're trying to promote women entrepreneurs. So they said, hey, can you help make videos for us? Like, well, yeah, well, here's our pricing. So people are starting to get that the youth have been put in some cases, 4 years of developing their skills, and those skills are worth money these days. So I'm trying to put money in their pocket. I'm trying to make them see the big picture that yes, you can work for a great organization, but maybe you can create your own business. So that's our mindset.
For me, being an independent artist, my biggest thing is connecting a kid, no matter what art they're into, to the lane that fits them that actually makes money. So for the most part, I'll have a kid who produces music, but he produces like 5 songs a day. So to me, it's like, okay, for you, You can do licensing for TV and film. You pump out enough work to where you can have a catalog for TV and film to pull for their work, and then starting to speak about how that works. I think for me, I'm always trying to connect them to a career that fits their art, however it is or whatever.
Thank you for hitting that, because I totally slipped that when we were talking about the history of YAI. There are 3 pilot locations for this. One is in Green Bay, one is in Milwaukee, and one is up in St. Cloud, Minnesota. And they chose these locations on purpose because the Midwest. All right, if we're gonna try this on either of the coasts in California or New York, well, you can't swing a cat without hitting an artist there. What about in Wisconsin or in Minnesota? Well, yeah, we're showing them that we got artists here, guys, and that's wonderful. That's exactly what we need to know. They are now in phase 2 of this, and we are the pilot, but the phase 2 pilot is going to have 9 branches, I think, so far. So, and then they're going to continue to do that. Wallace isn't going to be giving quite as much money to kick it off, because now they've got the data. They're just going to see how this thing builds, and we are always working on sustainability. That's really, really important. And those partnerships that we're developing everywhere within the community will help to kind of sustain that as well. So as far as our scalability, I think that the Boys and Girls Club of America is trying to really see where that's going, and hopefully we'll be consulting on that too.
If I can add to that, it isn't all perfect. Scalability is tough. I mean, I have 10 cameras, 10 editing suites. So can I bring in 20, 30 kids? That's challenging. So I'm still trying to work through that, and that's where adaptability and flexibility, it's in constant fluidity. It's constantly changing. We're trying to find ways. I try not to have to turn away a kid at any given point. So is it perfect? No, we're working at it. It's a work in progress.
Yeah, I would say for me too, for me, I want to boom, like I want it to be a huge thing, but I'm also only me. So I think there's a lot of different experiences and ways we've been thinking to culminate to be able to work with more kids. It's just being able to do it in a way that doesn't diminish the quality of the work and the quality of the impact and the experience. Well, the cool thing, I think with the trust built between the youth and the parents are very open about, because usually if a kid is like, I really want to do this, they're like, yes, leverage, I need that grade up right now. So for the most part, parents are they'll be very open about, yeah, I want them to come, but this needs to change. And we're able to get a different level of trust because we're coming in as artists rather than the person that's just telling me what to do. So we can explain, like I usually explain, like your schoolwork is your money. And that's how I talk to like the teens and the tweens. How you work right now is going to kind of show how you work in the future. So I try to do a lot of I try to bring it back to their lives and their livelihood when it comes to that. So like I said, we're counselors sometimes, and for the most part we have a lot of real conversations when it comes to kids who are dealing with certain things or need things to get better in their home life or school.
To jump onto that as well, the second report that's going to be coming out is going to hit more of those topics. How is schoolwork affected by what we're doing after school? And they're learning that there's more engagement. The kids take it just that little bit more seriously. And for our kids, that's significant. That's really important, because that little bit of change is going to change their lives. Alex, do you want to add?
For the most part, we have a lot of youth that are challenged. They're broken, I mean, but who isn't? So one of the things that I try to teach them is, imagine this being a crayon and I'm going to break you. Can you still create art? Yes, now you have 2 tools. So I'm trying to make them understand that concept, that we all have challenges, but those challenges can build us as well. So how do we measure that? That's the challenge, because I see degrees of leaps from one individual to another. One day used to say one word, now they say 10. Is that a leap? That's a leap. One that says they would walk to the club and he carried a screwdriver in his sack because he needed to defend himself at school. Now he says, oh, Mr. Alex, I don't need any of that anymore. I use my brains because I'm awesome. So you know what I mean? How do you measure that success?
We had a hard time smashing everything that we have been doing into a half an hour, so please come and talk to us if you're curious. We would love to share anything and everything that we do. Thank you for your love and attention, you guys. You have been awesome. And now back to the wonderful